This video contains main story spoilers for the FF14 Endwalker expansion. About a year ago as of this video, I created another one called The Worlds of Endwalker, a lore dive into everything we knew about the stars Meteion and her sisters the Meteia encountered on their journey across the Great Expanse. Now, thanks to the tribal quests of the Omicrons in Ultimate Duel, we have learned so much more about these stars and the races that called them home. Salvation came for these races thanks to Elysian, a new star that was born above Ultimate Duel, which turned out to be a path forward for all the races there. Let's go over each of them in chronological order from when they were first introduced in Endwalker. The Dragons of Ultimate Duel are the shades of life that once lived upon their long-gone star known as the Dragon Star. For years we have known the fate that befell the Dragon Star, a war between the dragons and the machine-like race of the Omicrons, the result of which was the Dragon Star being ravaged beyond hope of restoration. Midgardsormr, seeing the end was nigh, escaped the Dragon Star and travelled to Aetheris so dragonkind would endure. He was followed across the Great Expanse by Omega, the last original remnant of the Omicron race. Not long after he left the Dragon Star, the Meteia arrived there seeking an answer to their question. Dragonkind was all but gone by this stage, but what remained was catalogued by the Meteia to be later recreated on Ultimate Duel. They are creatures full of sorrow, anguish, existing only to await the end, plagued by memories of war and conflict. The eggs they lay never hatch, and those that do birth empty creatures who never knew what their race had lost. The mountains, peaks and skies which once gave dragons hope are long gone, and no wind exists to carry them in flight. The dragons in particular look nothing like they once did, with a ghostly appearance like that of forlorn spirits. The other dragonkin we see have also a much darker hue than the ones we see on Aetheris. But salvation would come, in the form of the Staff of the Last Dregs. Learning that their race endured in Midgardsormr and his brood brought them great relief, and indeed it was thanks to their kin on Aetheris that we learned the best way of lifting their spirits. It was these acts that triggered Dynamis, and new creations were brought forth on Elysian. The formation of tall mountains and peaks, as well as wind that would allow dragons to fly once more. A new home for dragonkind, where the eggs they lay birthed new life. The shades of dragonkind, seeing this new act of creation, now refer to themselves as dragons once more. They spend their time now interacting with the other races of Ultimate Duel, as well as partaking of new foods created by the Last Dregs. They also enjoy reminiscing about the good memories of their past, such as the ancient songs of dragonkind that once flew the skies of the Dragon Star.
Intellect was once our pride. Overnight it became our shame. Our works monuments to futility.
The Ea are an interesting race. Enlightened, logical, and knowledgeable. But these admirable traits couldn't help them to escape the sorrow that plagued them, even if they chose to deny it or find a logical excuse for it.
Immortality, our greatest invention, became a source of suffering.
Once a highly advanced civilization, the Ea chose to discard their mortal forms and become the beings we know today. Free of mortal bonds, they unlocked the secrets of the universe. But quickly they learned, such knowledge only held pain.
stars will continue to spread apart, as will their finite thermal energies. Eventually, all heavenly bodies will grow cold and freeze. No new stars will be born, and the universe will enter into an eternal ice age. Beneath the weight of this knowledge, our society stagnated. Though we had time still, it was a cold comfort.
The result of this stagnation was the demise of their world, known as the Neb 3, and all life that called it home. By the time the Metea came to the Neb 3, the Aya were already far gone in mind, wandering aimlessly and would not give an answer to her question. What remains of their race was recreated on Ultima Thule, exactly as they were found. Spiritual manifestations of immortal intelligence, with no will to continue on.
Why strive for anything when desolation is assured? When our wealth of wisdom, accumulated since the dawning of our kind, would be forever lost.
At first, they took no interest in the goings-on of the last dregs. However, they grew more interested as others came to take interest in them and aid in acts of stimulation, even if the attempts proved out to be fruitless. Over time, they came to accept the interest others showed in them, going as far as to share the mental sensation of us eating a meal they were possibly familiar with, to spark memories long since forgotten. This caused a moment of new enlightenment for the Aya, which resulted in new dynamic changes to Elysian. A new slice of their long-gone star as it used to be was created, and with it, new life unknown yet familiar to the Aya were created, called the Miu Misu. These new beings bear many similarities to the Aya. Two such individuals had their own ideas as to why this may be. Like unto newborn babes, or so I assume. Eons have passed since we Aya have held a child. Yet is it not conceivable that some part of us remembers, if these creatures arose from our fondness of the past? They may indeed be the nascent forms mentioned in our ancient records. Despite not remembering them, it's very likely that the Miu Misu are the juvenile form of what the Aya originally were, before discarding their mortal forms. It's thanks to the Miu Misu that the Aya have found new purpose. They now work to care for this new life created from their memories. In return, the Miu Misu share positive sensations with the Aya, as they still don't have bodies of their own. Their home on Ultima Thule acts as a sort of nursery for the Miu Misu, and the Aya are still in the process of learning to be parents and guardians, while also learning to trust. The future seems bright for the Aya and the Miu Misu, who together walk a path into the future, regardless of what fate may hold.
Etched upon these stones are the testaments of such souls.
The Omicrons will never leave this star.
The Omicrons are machine entities, which hail from a long-lost star called Alphatron. Once they were humanoid, and lived on their star with other races. At first they coexisted, until the point that the Omicrons were greatly threatened.
Our kind did not always look as we do now. Long ago, we possessed frail and feeble bodies. Beleaguered by stronger races, our ancestors took to augmenting their flesh in order to defend themselves.
This process continued on, replacing one body part after another, until they passed the point of no return.
And at last, a means was discovered to convert the mind into data, rendering even the brain obsolete.
They thus adopted a new name, Omicron, and proceeded to subjugate and reign supreme on their star. It was at this point that a process had started that would see them branch out across the stars, on an endless crusade to lay low any that were stronger than them.
We were successful in that endeavor. So powerful did we become, we could lay low even the mighty dragons.
Not long after they defeated the Dragon Star, the Omicrons quickly fell into decline, for they had accomplished their goal of being the strongest, with no stronger races existing in their scope of view.
It was then that I speculated. What could happen if we grew so powerful as to have no equal? To become stronger was essential to our existence. Our every action has been in service to this objective. But if nothing lies beyond this, can it be truly said that it was essential?
This was how the Omicron civilization met its end, falling silent on their star until all power faded and their end came. At some point prior to this, they encountered the Matea, but it's not known what the result of this meeting was. Nonetheless, the Omicrons were recreated in Ultima Thule, in an endless state of inactivity, which was likely how they were found.
In the beginning we had a higher purpose than our pursuit of power. But we lost sight of it when we so irrevocably altered our fundamental forms. When we cast aside our flesh, so too did we cast aside all that defined us. Nothing remains of who we once were.
It was thanks to Jammingway, the staff of the last dregs, and indeed all the inhabitants of Ultima Thule, that the Omicrons discovered new purpose, outside the set goals of helping the other races find their own. They wrestled with the thought that once their new goal was completed, they would end up inactive once again. But with all the changes they witnessed and helped bring forth, they found a will buried deep down to break free, past the programming, no longer
Lost amidst circuitry and code and commands.
The Omicrons are moving forward together thanks to Elysian and the other races that dwell there. Pure machines they may be, but a spark of life they held dear still lingers on. Impossible as it may have seemed when we first met them, they have been able to overcome the hurdle that saw their civilization perish, while also relearning the meaning of emotions, both theirs and others. This is what triggered the changes to Elysian, with the creation of trees akin to the one that first set them on their new path.
For we knew that the universe was home to civilizations aside from our own. Civilizations that may be stronger still than us.
Once upon a time, there was a beautiful blue star.
The Grebeloff are an aquatic race not unlike the Namazu of Aetheris. They once lived happy productive lives beneath the waves and blue seas of their star. However, as their civilization advanced, so did their technology, which came at great cost to the environment. It was this polluting of the seas that spurred the Grebeloffs to invade the land and take it for themselves. This, however, only served to make the damage worse, with the technology of war they created destroying their beloved seas, and turning the blue waves to dark and breeding disease.
The more its people clung to life, the more they suffered.
This infected the land as well as the sea, and touched all life on their star. In their last days, one of the Matea came to their world, but the Grebeloff had no positive answers to her question. Why do you ask such a question? Do you not see the plague and pestilence that consumes us? This is a world of rancid blood and rotting flesh, where death is the only remedy to suffering. There is no meaning to be found in such misery. And so the Grebeloff civilization rotted and succumbed to pestilence and fear.
And the very last of them wished they had never been born at all.
Their memory would live on, in the very depths of the despair of their final days. It wasn't until after the last dregs was established and aid given to the Carillions, that the Grebeloff discovered they had been given a second chance. At first, they despaired at the loss of their world and friends, even more thanks to the salad menu of the last dregs bringing back these painful memories. They wandered Ultima Thule in sadness, seeking pools of water to dip in and fish, but they would not find it. Indeed, it was the introduction of fish to the menu of the last dregs that lightened their saddened hearts once more. The taste and aroma of fish brought back the good memories of their star, which triggered the second dynamatic creations of Elysian. This time, it was the creation of bodies of water for them to dip and enjoy to their heart's content, while also being stocked with fish for them to catch. They found purpose once more now that their home had returned to them, where the waters are clear and blue. They share the bounty of these waters with their neighbours, and have these gifts returned in kind, in the form of other foods or of meals at the last dregs.
In a faraway place, a brilliant star eradicated disease before destroying the selfsame lives it had saved.
The Corellians are a Hure-like race, and one of the first the Matea encountered that gave them an answer to their question. Their tale is one of perpetual conflict. Its people fought amongst themselves for the longest time, until after one such war, their star was united under one government, known as the Global Community. Through this, the Corellians found peace and prosperity. However, the rule was not a just one. As such, resistance began to form and they were split once again. The Global Community on one side, and the freedom fighters on the other. This war would be their last, and overtook their entire star. It was during this conflict that the Matea arrived seeking an answer. The Global Community took her arrival as a sign of their wisdom and compassion, and thus assurance in their mind that their way was the right one. Spurred on by false righteousness, they created 10,000 war machines known as the Peacekeepers, to wipe out the freedom fighters and bring peace once more. Using artificial intelligence, they instructed it to rid the star of any potential threats to peace, not knowing that the AI would also include its own creators as such a threat. In the end, the Corellians were united once again, in a fight for survival. By the end of the conflict, the last survivors deployed weapons of mass destruction to wipe out the Peacekeepers, but this also led to the extermination of their own race.
And when one asked, "What is the point?" there were none left to answer.
The memories of this long-gone world were recreated by Meteion within her cocoon of dead ends. Thanks to the staff at the last dregs, however, the Corellians would be recreated anew on Ultima Thule, but the animosity of the Global Community and the freedom fighters remained. Right away, the defiant fighters and proud citizens were at odds with each other, fully prepared to renew their conflict. Happily enough, both of them would finally agree on something, when it came to the ingredients of the food they were served as well as the taste. It was thanks to the staff at the last dregs that both parties found their common ground, that both of their factions once stood upon, and thus spurred the first dynamatic creations of Elysian. An agricultural environment was created for the Corellians, Global Community and freedom fighter alike, where both could express themselves as one race and move forward together. They made massive strides in such a short time, with each side caring for the well-being of the other in this new chance they had been gifted. They now find joy and progress in the growth and cultivation of their land, strange as some of this vegetation and fruit may be, and sharing its bounty with the last dregs and the other races of Ultima Thule.
Farther still existed a star without strife, where none remembered life's trials or its joys.
The Nibiru were an advanced and wise race of people that reached great heights, more than most races would achieve. seeking to maintain this happiness they had worked so hard for, the Nibiru would unlock the secrets of immortality, and were able to eliminate strife and pain from their civilization. But this act to create eternal happiness only doomed them. Without pain and strife, they lost the meaning of joy, happiness, and hope. The Nibiru spiraled into endless despair, made worse by the fact that they were now immortal and could not die. In the deepest depths of this sorrow was the point that the Metea arrived seeking an answer to their question. A curious traveller visited our star, a bird which proffered these questions. What meaning does life hold? For what do you strive? I could find no satisfactory answers, only bittersweet memories of an age long past. There was a time when we were lesser, and in our nascence sought purpose, struggled to justify life's worth. That was, of course, before we achieved perfection. Now, condemned to our paradise, we understand the futility of existence. Like the fledglings we once were, the poor bird could not accept the truth. It asked us again and again, hoping perhaps our answer might change. There was a time when we yearned to explore the heavens, found purpose in the hope of unveiling life's mysteries. A dream shattered when we reached enlightenment, and found it empty.
So they created the kindest, most gentle of beasts.
Seeking an end to a timeless life of suffering, the Nibiru created the means of their own destruction. They called it Ra-La, a beautiful beast that had the ability to destroy the Nibiru and end their suffering. And so it was with light steps and a golden glow, the Nibiru were ushered to sleep happily ever after. Their memory would live on in the Metea, and would be recreated in Ultima Thule. At first, the Nibiru could not comprehend why they had been born anew, and seek to enlighten the others of the futility of life and impart the will to end. The staff of the Last Dregs took offense to this, of course, and challenged the Nibiru to explore and learn about the races and worlds that exist on Ultima Thule, in order to change their point of view, while being careful not to let them corrupt the work they had put in to create Elysian. They appeared to enjoy the sorrow and strife that they witnessed, but somewhere down the line, their viewpoint changed. It was the efforts of all the races that existed in Ultima Thule that in the end brought the Nibiru around. While they indeed saw sorrow and tragedy, they also saw that life was beginning and change was happening, something they long lost sight of. It was further thanks to the wise races that inhabit Elysian that the Nibiru found a purpose and will to continue onward, seeing that they had recaptured the negative and positive feelings they long ago discarded. Now, they share their viewpoints in a more friendly forum, and all over a nice cup of tea. They seem to have struck a particular friendship with the Aya, who are of an intellectual level comparable with them, and thus makes for the sharing of ideas and the disproving of theories. The Gordhonites are the last race we encountered on Ultima Thule in chronological order, existing in the memory banks of the Omicrons. This race and their star were one of the first that the Omicrons encountered and conquered, when they first left the confines of Alphatron. At first, they thought the machines of this star were the dominant life form, but later discovered that it was instead silicon-based life forms that inhabited and ruled this planet and built the machines. This race, and their machines, were wiped out by the Omicrons merely for being a possible threat. Most of the information we have on them is lost, but we do know that the Omicrons stripped their star bare for resources to fuel their conquests, a process they would repeat many times over. Gordhona was long gone by the time the Metea found their world, though it's not confirmed that they recorded any information from it. It's possible one of the entries they recorded was their homeworld, but we can't be certain. The machine life forms, more likely than not with silicon life within, exist now at the Last Dregs, keeping watch over the premises and its patrons. According to the records of N7000, the Nibiru were the last race they could successfully recreate on Ultimate Duel, with the rest being far too degraded to recover. It's possible that these races had been created and faded away on Ultimate Duel, in the millennia between the Metea forming it and starting the Song of Oblivion all the way to the present. While many long lost races have been created as they were on Ultimate Duel and the new star of Elysian, one more civilization was given form for the first time. That civilization is the races of Ultimate Duel combined. We have seen how each race has learned to care for the others, sharing their habitats, resources and knowledge with each other, and helping one another find their new purpose. I like to call this new civilization the Elizonians, who inhabit the star of Elysian. It seems the future is bright for Ultimate Duel and Elysian, and with the power of Dynamis, who knows what the future may hold. Thanks for watching everyone. Ultimate Duel and the quest revolving around Elysian have been some of my favourite content to date. I'd love to get your take on this content as well, so let me and everybody know your opinion in the comments. Lastly, hit that like button to support this video if you enjoyed it, and consider subscribing if you haven't yet, and if you are already, thank you so much. As Endwalker passes the halfway point, I look forward to the introduction of new races or old ones from lore that have yet to be seen. Thanks all, and now, as always, have a good one.